With the DCU's rendition of Superman finally hitting the silver screen, the Man of Steel's image has not seen a spike of popularity like this in a long time, much to the chagrin of delusional Snyder Bros.
No, 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 no.
With this newfound and hopefully continual success, I thought we'd compare him with the star team of the MCU, the Avengers. The Avengers are no strangers to powerhouses, you know them all and so do I. But after just one film, the DCU's rendition of Superman has more than proven himself to be a force to be reckoned with. So could the Avengers, as they're seen in Endgame, defeat him? This will contain spoilers for Superman, so if you haven't watched the movie, please go see it, then come back to watch the rest of this video. For this, I'll primarily be focusing on the films for stats and feats, but take comics and soft canon material into account when explaining abilities. As for the Avengers, as stated, this will be the team as they were in the final fight with Thanos in Endgame. Just pretend Thanos and his army are replaced by only Superman. Because of this, neither know a thing about each other's abilities, weaknesses, etc. Each member will have access to their powers and gear as seen up to this point. However, if they show new abilities in later projects without gaining any sort of boost or upgrade beforehand, I will count as an ability they'll have for this matchup. Lastly, and most importantly, power scaling the Avengers and especially Superman is always a headache and an iffy discussion. I'll do my best here, but people are going to disagree with me even if I describe what's blatantly shown on the screen. So all I ask is you at least keep it respectful in the comments. With that out of the way, let's get to it. Yeah, not everyone is surviving this, so let's just get them out of the way. Hawkeye, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and all the armies are not making it. They're cannon fodder. Honorable mentions are Valkyrie, Black Panther, and Spider-Man. Valkyrie slashes through a Leviathan, which we'll see later is pretty impressive, but that's really about it for her. T'Challa's suit could protect him from becoming paste, but he can be knocked out if you exert more force in a punch than his suit can absorb. Spider-Man could likely evade Superman and possibly survive attacks since he'll be in the Iron Spider, but he's not damaging Superman. At best, he can help distract him. Now, on to the real contenders. What better place to start than the man who started it all? Going into this, I was expecting to put him into the dead on arrival category, but I think he'd handle himself pretty good in this battlefield. While Tony isn't the fastest Avenger, he makes up for this with an AI that can fight and react for him. While he did lose his fight with Cap and Bucky despite this, that was both due to being outnumbered and because that armor wasn't designed for combat. But his earlier suits, like the Mark VI, are able to fire dual lasers that easily slice through Whiplash's drones. Both are stated to fire at temperatures of 200 petawatts, or 2 exajoules. Being shot for 5 seconds, this is an astonishing level of heat and energy. This is a double-edged sword though, as it quickly drains most of his suit's power. Though by the time we get to Infinity War, we see Tony use the laser to slice through the metal of a Q ship, where before it couldn't slice through a Worm Thing's armor before his suit ran out of power.
Sir, we will lose power before we penetrate that shell.
This shows he's upgraded it to emit at even hotter levels and by extension longer set at 200 petawatts. His nanotech is its own degree of broken, as it's strong enough to keep Thanos from closing his fingers. The same fingers that pierce the vibranium in Vision's forehead like tinfoil. It's also shown a level of endurance so high it can withstand a beam from the Power Stone, which we saw can obliterate entire planets in seconds. And to anyone who doubts this feat, we see his nanotech consistently allows people to wield Infinity Stones, which just holding one barehanded could kill or banish you. When Banner undoes the blip, the gauntlet and his arm take the same amount of damage as Thanos in the Uru Gauntlet after the first snap, with enough endurance left for another one, proving this would be possible. However, we can assume this pushed the suit to its absolute limits as we see Tony running low on nanobots not long after. It's also worth mentioning that Tony will have help from Pepper and Rhodey, and we see in nobody's favorite scene that the rescue suit is able to explode a bit of armor off an Air Glizzy's body, showing she's at least comparable to Endgame Tony in terms of firepower. By Avengers 1, it's safe to assume Hulk was the most powerful member on the team in terms of raw strength. With just one punch, he stopped a behemoth bratwurst and dented the armor on its face. Assuming this thing weighs around 1,200 tons, flying at around 30 miles per hour, and taking into account that not even a 200 petawatt laser could pierce its shell after being shot for an approximate minimum of 10 seconds, I kid you not, Hulk's fist would have to be delivering a punch well beyond city level, almost 9.5 SAR bombas, just to dent this armor. Hulk's fist would be strong enough to absolutely annihilate a city 10 times over. That's a level of striking force Ellerny Saitama's respect. And for lifting strength, we see Thor needs both arms to hold his one fist back, I guess. Later, after spending years on Sakaar, Hulk still couldn't find anybody to push his limits even from the strongest champions the universe had to offer. Even Thor was at about the same level as him until the Odin Force awakened and gave him an edge. After going with Thor to Asgard, he stood his own against Fenris, Hela's pet she labeled True Power, right after calling the Casket of Winters weak and an Infinity Stone not bad. The Casket of Winters is shown to freeze an entire planet's surface instantly, which would make it multi-continental to low planetary in terms of power. And again, compared to Fenris, Hela considers this weak. But most impressive, in my opinion, was when Hulk leapt up to Surtur powered by the Eternal Flame and knocked him back. This same deity shrugged off Hela's best attacks and killed her with just one slam of his sword. While this might not seem impressive at first glance as Hulk only staggered Surtur, Hela giving it her all didn't do much better. However, since Hulk relies on brute force and isn't well versed in combat, he can be beaten by hitting pressure points and overwhelmed by someone who's faster than him. This is how Thanos easily beat him in Infinity War. Lastly, and most damningly, Hulk for this matchup isn't the Savage Hulk that we all know and love, but Bruce Banner in control of the Hulk's body, with one arm crippled after undoing the snap. You might have picked up on this since he wasn't in the Dead on Arrival category, but Steve will have access to Mjolnir when facing Superman. This means he'll have the power of Thor granted to him like what happened with Dr. Jane Foster. Starting off with his combat prowess, Steve Rogers is one of the best fighters in the MCU. With just one hand tied, he fought a group of agents in an elevator and still won. With Natasha's help, he held up Proxima Midnight, the best combatant in the Black Order, and still won. With Bucky's help, he fought Iron Man while he was adapting to his combative moves and still won. He's a tactical genius, single-handedly turning the tides against Hydra and fighting off multiple alien armies. He usually outmaneuvers and holds his own against opponents leagues more powerful than them like Spider-Man and Ultron because of this. With Mjolnir and the power of Thor, he truly becomes a formidable force to be reckoned with. By Thor's first film, we're told by Odin that the hammer is a weapon with no equal. This is while the Casket of Winters is chilling in his basement. Pun entirely intended. This adds up as a few hours later, Thor unleashed a bolt of lightning that shook the entire planet of Jotunheim and cratered a good chunk of the planet's surface. The novel adaptation stating its size to be 100 times larger than the Grand Canyon, or 27,700 miles when measured by length, and runs so deep you can see space to the other side of the planet. This is a hole almost 3 times the size of Earth's diameter. To do this, Thor would need to unleash 27,900 gigatons of TNT. Granted, the planet is primarily made of layers of ice, which isn't the same as smashing apart stone, but this still isn't anything to scoff at either. On a lesser note, with help from Tony, he was able to smash Sokovia into rubble. The island being about 2 kilometers wide, this is calculated to require about 163.4 gigatons of TNT. And don't forget, at worst, Steve now has the strength to hold back Avengers 1 Hulk, with the potential of being even stronger. The hammer's speed varies, but its best feat was when it traveled from the exosphere back to Earth in about 4 to 5 seconds, ranging from Mach 962 to Mach 9718. His iconic shield is without a doubt going to be one of the most durable things on this battlefield. By his first movie, we saw it deflecting blasts from an Infinity Stone which would normally vaporize anything it came in contact with. It's also consistently taken and reflected blows from Mjolnir. Very likely not the same level of devastation we saw in Jotunheim, but still worth mentioning. More impressively is when Ultron's final body got blasted by Vision's beam for about 20 seconds, with help from Thor's lightning and Tony's repulsor blasts, and at best, it made the vibranium plating fall off. Considering a healthy Vision's beam can instantly slice through Thanos like hot butter when he can take Odin Force Thor's lightning, this would easily put vibranium's melting point in kinetic absorption well beyond planetary. Taking this a step further with T'Challa's vibranium fabric and Cap's wings, we see it endure 28 punches from Red Hulk. Yes, I counted. Absorbing that kinetic energy before reaching a tipping point. Assuming Thunderbolt Ross is comparable to Banner's Hulk, considering we see he's strong enough to crack vibranium, and that in his bloodlust each blow he delivered was on par with the Space Cow punch, this on a low end would put vibranium's durability beyond 56 billion gigajoules of kinetic energy, and at most 111 million, the equivalent of 266 SAR bombas. This sounds insane, I know. I triple checked the calculations to make sure this was right. And trust me, this is about to make sense. While not the strongest Avenger, Carol Danvers does have plenty of overlooked feats leagues better than any other member. She's strong enough to hold back one of Thanos' hands. She can tank base Thor's lightning. She has enough raw energy to fly into a star and reignite it. In What If, she pushes Infinity Ultron into the core of a planet and manages to put cracks into his vibranium helmet. And she can produce enough energy to punch a hole into space-time. More impressive is when Tony was lost in space by his estimate 1,000 light years from Earth, and Captain Marvel managed to find him and Nebula after combing through space for 22 days. Even if we ignore that she had to fly to Earth first, Carol would have to be flying and perceiving at over 16,000 times the speed of light to find this tiny little ship drifting through space. This is debatably the fastest speed feat shown in the MCU if you don't include cosmic beings and deities. The mighty Stormbreaker was forged in the stated by Thor to be the only weapon that could kill Thanos. This is while he was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket Raccoon being able to casually create cannons that can blow up a moon and a bomb that can shatter Ego's core. But the axe was the only thing that could beat Thanos. You could say Thor is referring to the enchantment that made it immune to the Infinity Stones, but we see it consistently cleaving right through Thanos, similar to a healthy Vision. Lastly, we're told by Rocket the snap Thanos release was
power surge of ridiculously cosmic proportions. No one's ever seen anything like it.
He took this level of energy point blank twice. I could take a crack at this, but my brain refuses to calculate Celestials blowing up planets and creating galaxies, or how much energy you'd need to wipe out half of all life in the universe, including on a microscopic level, or how durable you'd have to be to endure that. So let's just say Stormbreaker can very least easily cleave through planets if it wanted to, and just move on. Because after Thor inherits the Odin Force, is when things start getting interesting. After discovering he'd inherited his father's power, he was able to break the Rainbow Bridge with just one bolt of lightning, whereas before he needed 10 swings from Mjolnir to break it. But most insane is when it vaporized the Necro Sword, Null's sword that had previously decapitated the Celestial Nowhere and killed Falagard the Behemoth, a deity Thor stated played with black holes for fun, which is just completely breaks physics on a number of levels. While his speed is a bit wonky, it isn't accurate to say the time he was blitzed by Quicksilver is still the absolute best speed he can do. As we see in later films, he can consistently keep up with lightspeed characters like Thanos, which was after his Odin Force amp, so this bump in speed does make sense. And of course, his most infamous feat is when he survived the full force of a neutron star for
A few minutes, maybe more.
real descriptive. But before we scale this, let's try to answer what full force of a star means. A neutron star is one of the most extreme celestial objects in the universe, second only to a black hole. However, its surface heat, even when concentrated, isn't that hot. About 600,000 to 1,000,000 degrees Celsius at the hottest. This is hotter than our sun's surface and still impressive as a feat. But something doesn't add up here. These aren't temperatures that we can't recreate here on Earth. So without a doubt, some alien world out there is going to have a forge that reaches that level of heat without requiring you cook yourself. But then why depend on a neutron star to build Stormbreaker? Why build a forge around specifically one of the most dangerous objects in the universe? Unless you're using more than just the surface's heat. Uru is one of the strongest metals in the MCU. Even vibranium can shrug off star-level heat. It seems more likely that when Eitri said,
You're about to take the full force of a star,
he really meant the whole thing. And not just the heat either, but the gravity, radiation, and pressure that comes with the heat. Assuming a few minutes means about 5 to 10 minutes, surviving a full concentrated might of a neutron star's surface and the cores is absolutely insane. Even on a low end, that's 9 times 10 to the power of 31 joules. That's like getting hit by 400 million Tsar Bombas worth of heat and force. That's more energy than our sun puts out in a week. This easily puts anything I've said in this video so far to shame. Doctor Strange is an odd case. While he's nowhere near the strongest character on this list, he certainly has more than enough at his disposal to turn the tides. After bargaining with Dormammu for many years, he had plenty of time to get used to using his spells and learn how to fight with the unintentional help of this other dimensional deity. By the time he faced Thanos with most of the Infinity Stones, he was able to trade blows with the Mad Titan better than most Avengers. Instead of listing off all of his magic, I'll go with some highlights. He can teleport himself and others instantly, create and manipulate matter, even able to grant it magical properties, bring someone to the mirror dimension, create force fields, knock one's soul out of their body, and given enough time, he can even brainwash someone or suppress their memories. What I consider to be the actual strongest Avenger Wanda Maximoff, before gaining the Darkhold, shows some of the most insane feats the MCU had seen up to the point of Endgame. By her first movie, her chaos magic was able to casually rip through Ultron's vibranium plating, which earlier only fell off when hit by an Infinity Stone. She could read and control minds, ranging from chaotic mindless Hulk to the strong-willed Steve Rogers. And unlike before, where she needed to get close to someone to do it, through Heartbreak, she did this on a town-wide scale. On that note, she can also create and manipulate matter, including vibranium. She's powerful enough to break an Infinity Stone, something very rarely seen in the MCU. Like, Surtur would be able to do this, I guess. When enraged in Endgame, she was strong enough to hold back Thanos using all of his strength and smugly shattered his blade, which earlier shrugged off an amped Tony and chopped through vibranium like drywall. She then grabbed Thanos and ripped his armor to bits and did more damage to him than the 3-on-1 he had with Thor, Tony, and worthy Cap. To avoid peeving off Superman fans, I'm going to try highballing as many of his feats as I can, although I am still going to mention lowballs too. And since his movie is still in theaters, I'm stuck using only trailer clips. Yay! His pressure resistance is astonishing. Not only can he lift the kaiju's foot, it put its whole body weight onto him and he just barely budges. Based on how tall Clark is compared to the kaiju and taking into account of its natural body armor, this thing should weigh somewhere around 2,400,000 pounds, or 1,200 tons. He even carries and gently lays the guy down like a baby. A big, stomachless baby. On a slightly lesser note, he does carry an actual skyscraper, likely more than one considering these things fell on each other like dominoes. Striking strength is surprisingly hard to scale. Since he's always holding back, I can't exactly say punching the kaiju is the best he can do. I could try scaling and breaking bulletproof glass while not at top strength, but that's not impressive. I could scale him punching Ultraman, but he's literally a clone of Clark, and Superman is pretty much the only character he fights throughout the movie. I can't even compare him with other metahumans like the Justice Gang, as the things they fight span from regular humans to the same monsters Superman fights, and even then, they don't do much better than him. The best I got is when he fights Engineer, who passes out after falling from the Earth's atmosphere back into Earth and gets bit by Krypto. Based on this and his other abilities, let's just say at base, he's strong enough to easily destroy a building and move on. His speed is a lot easier to calculate. The movie literally gives us a unit of time to go off of. While seriously injured, it takes Superman 3 minutes to fly from Metropolis to the Antarctic, where the Fortress of Solitude resides. We later see him fly back at a casual pace, which brings him back to Metropolis at about the same speed. So we could say his casual top speed is about 111 kilometers per second, or Mach 325. However, later in the film when he learns Lex broke into the fortress is when I think we see his best flight speed. The film doesn't make it clear how much time passes before he makes it there, but let's be generous and assume he makes the same trip in about 30 seconds, which would easily make him almost 667.2 kilometers per second, or Mach 2000. This adds up as he and Krypto are seen chilling on the moon in the after credits scene. A trip like this would take about 10 minutes to reach. Also worth noting is when fighting Ultraman, he dodges one of his lasers. This, however, was done before it was fired. We even see a part where he's later hit by the same guy and he doesn't dodge it. If I stretch, there is a scene where he, in a weakened state, and Metamorpho work together to escape the event horizon of a miniature black hole. This is pretty insane. However, we should take this with a grain of salt for a multitude of reasons. For one, Clark himself admits he can't escape the black hole if he got sucked in. While we can give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he meant he was too weak to fly out, Krypto also flies in and isn't capable of escaping without Superman and Metamorpho's help. It also doesn't work to assume he can fly this fast based on using his freeze breath alone to propel himself, with the help of Metamorpho. I'm mostly basing this on the assumption that Superman could fly at least as fast as him. Lastly, Ultraman supposedly dies by being sucked into the same black hole, unable to escape it himself, showing even a healthy Superman still can't do the same thing. But for the sake of highballing, I'll still count it as Superman's absolute best speed, and say he can just barely fly at light speed. Though, because of this, we can safely say his freeze breath is absolutely devastating if it's powerful enough to help launch them all away from the black hole. I'm sure some will try to point this out, so let's nip into the butt real quick. Supergirl supposedly flies from another solar system with a red sun back to Earth, which would make her many, many times faster than light. Problem here is she was under a red sun, and would need a ship to fly back. His durability is tricky to pin down, though there are things we can point to. For one, he withstands the heat of a concentrated sunbeam shooting down on him, which was stated to be
292 times Saharan prime, please one.
Which presumably means 292 times the heat of the hottest recorded day of the Saharan desert, or 58 degrees Celsius, totaling to 17,000 degrees Celsius. That's almost 4 times hotter than the surface of our sun. and he just tanks that for at most about 20 seconds. Some will probably say, based on his reaction, that this level of heat could actually be damaging him and his cells are regenerating him faster than the sun can burn him. But here's the thing. Not only is there no hard evidence to prove this, having your body heal from such extreme wounds in such an extreme amount of time would at the very least make you scream. Much later, he's hit with laser beams directly into the eyes from Ultraman, and at worst, his eye sockets have a red streak across them. We could safely assume he had his eyes closed during this, because why wouldn't they? But this is really impressive, and could imply his laser vision burns even hotter than the Saharan Prime Beam. And of course, he has no immunity to magic. Some honorable mentions. Superman is stated multiple times to be the strongest metahuman on Earth, by both Lex and Clark himself. While we don't know how many metahumans there are yet, we do see a painted wall in the Hall of the Justice Gang depicting many different superheroes. I couldn't see every single one of them as it was only up for a few seconds, and I'm not buying another ticket just to double check. So if Captain Atom or some other overpowered character is on there, I will be willing to eat my shoe on a few things I said in this video. And since it takes him about 12 to 20 seconds to fully heal from
14 fractured bones.
Damage to bladder, kidney, large intestine, lungs.
And we imagine he's basking under the hottest Saharan day ever recorded, it took a significant amount of time to heal from the same injuries. About 40 minutes to an hour if we're being generous. And that's with the hottest Saharan temperature. If we're under a normal sunny day, or a not so sunny day, he isn't going to instantly heal from wounds. And since there's no Crypto or Fortress of Solitude to heal himself, he isn't healing during this battle. So who wins? It certainly isn't going to be easy, but I'm going to say the Avengers. Even if you disagree with my scaling for them and want to downplay some of the feats I mentioned and say Superman can blow up a planet, you can't deny there are going to be too many undeniable powerhouses going at him at the same time for him to win this. Tony can wrap his nanotech around Superman to hold his arms in place. Captain Marvel can fly circles around him and stop him from flying away from the battlefield. Steve can unleash lightning onto him. Wanda can read his mind and find his weakness to kryptonite and red sun energy, the former dropping him to his knees if it's nearby and burning his skin if it gets too close. Or she can use magic to hold him in place and turn his brain off. Doctor Strange can knock his soul out of his body to give Thor a clean shot. Hulk can slap him. Maybe if he kills the magic users first, he'll force the Avengers to rely on their heavy hitters and might have a shot, but that's still a pretty big maybe. But keep in mind, this is still an early Superman who's only had one movie, and already he's capable of beating most Avengers before being overwhelmed. And no doubt he's only going to get stronger from here. Like already, he more than likely beats the Avengers by their first movie. Maybe after a few films and projects from the DCU, I'll return to this video saying Superman easily beats Endgame Avengers. For now though, it's safe to say more often than not, the Avengers win.